Alucard.
Present.
Bender.
Present.
Blair.
Here.
Kahn.
Here.
Crab.
Here.
Donlinger.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Hanyoung. Heasley. Johnson.
Here.
Class.
Here.
Klein.
Present.
Klein.
Present.
Litford. Ludwig. Mass. Meredith. Mitchell. Origer. Rice.
Here.
Rinchi. Rolling. Smanu. Schrader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Tonette. Zastro. Did I miss anyone? No? Okay. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Acting Speaker Schrader. We have quorum. We'll now move on to programs. We have John from YSS.
We also have Ryan Doyle from YSS today, and we are part of the prevention department. My title is the Tobacco Prevention Coordinator. I do that for Boone and Story County, and I work under an IDPH, Iowa Department of Public Health grant that seeks to limit exposure to tobacco products in general, and nicotine. I'll just kind of say we do have a bill that is going to be proposed, and we're kind of here as the auxiliary to that. I mean, this is very informal, and we know as an organization and at kind of working contract for the state, we know that Iowa State is a smoke-free campus. Okay, we know that that includes, as of 2016, e-cigarettes. But what we are trying to do is push for a complete tobacco and then, in effect, nicotine-free policy by adding all other products. And Ryan, I'm going to kind of pass it to you on this because I just want to kind of give an idea of what other tobacco products are out there, and then we'll move back into some of the more of the whys.
Sure. So nicotine is a substance that's being infused into a lot of different products that are out there nowadays. Traditionally, we think of nicotine and we think of tobacco cigarettes, occasionally cigars, cigarillos, other types of smokable, combustible tobacco products. Nowadays, it is obviously e-cigarettes are a much more prevalent thing that maybe someone in this room may have seen at one point in time, even though they are banned on campus. But there are other products now that are coming out. There has always been chewing tobacco. States like Iowa have always had more chewing tobacco and more smokeless tobacco than others. But nowadays we also have other products out there. We have snus, which is similar to chewing tobacco but utilizes different methods of nicotine delivery. Beyond that, we also have some of the things like nicotine toothpicks. These are wooden toothpicks infused with nicotine. We also have nicotine chewing gum, not the federally approved cessation devices that we're familiar with, but ones that are just there for people to absorb nicotine in a recreational manner, not as a smoking cessation product. So there are a lot of different products coming out now that if you said, hey, I'm just going to say no tobacco, thereby I'm limiting anyone who's not reached the age of 21 from absorbing any nicotine in their body, that wouldn't be sufficient. Nowadays, there's a lot more products out there that exist. And as fewer and fewer people utilize combustible tobacco, there's going to be more and more products out there. There's a brand new one that is a not a vapor device, but not a official combustible product, but a brand new one that just got FDA approval to be sold in the United States called ECOS, and that's another product that is made by Big Tobacco. Also releases a lot of the same chemicals as regular cigarettes. There's arguments on whether or not there's sufficiently enough tar so that they can say it's healthier. But unfortunately, all these products come out, and then we have to come up with new legislations or policies to try and keep people safe. On top of that, not only no one believes that passing a policy is going to guarantee that they won't be able to pick it up because there's a policy in place. But sometimes just having a policy in place really does affect the way people perceive a product. And that's really important now with all the different new non-approved nicotine products that are out there. Nicotine patches, nicotine gum that are prescribed by a doctor that you can get from a lot of pharmacies usually are different than a lot of these more recreational nicotine products that are being promoted primarily by Big Tobacco.
And functionally speaking, okay, though we do have a smoke-free policy on campus, I think it's pretty evident. I'm a master's student here too, so I go here, and it's pretty evident that people vape on campus, right? I think we all know that. But one of the bigger enforcement pieces that we could have by adopting a policy is free signage from the state. All right, so if we have a comprehensive policy that covers the rest of the nicotine products, we will be able to get signage and then have that provided. Be a better enforcement policy. And I'd also just like to bring the fact that this university is the last major university here in Iowa that isn't completely tobacco-free, okay? So we probably should think about catching up. And beyond that as well, I think it's approximately 66% of the student body population is within that 18 to 21-year-old range. And with the recent changes to the federal law, it's tobacco 21, okay? So it doesn't matter if it really doesn't matter what, whenever we present anywhere, we get pushback for how bad is this product versus this one. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, okay? Because it's all illegal on 21. Okay, so we need to catch up to that as well. The state of Iowa I guarantee, will pass a tobacco 21 law for the state. So it's really coming into compliance with that too. All right, so there are the legal reasons for that. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to, especially as a university, but then as the wider community, just try to lessen the exposure to tobacco products in general, and that just simply means nicotine in all of its forms.
Questions for our speaker? Senator Krapp?
Hi, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. So I was just wondering what you guys are doing to get the word out besides just having policy. Just be like, hey, this is bad for you, or you guys probably know a lot about the topic.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we do is we're in the prevention department, and I think there's this perception around YSS as an organization, if you've heard of it, that it is kind of kid-oriented, so to speak. But I just Monday, I came out here to Forker to I don't exactly remember what health class it was, but to a health class to present. We talk more in depth about I'm a master's student in history, and so I kind of like to contextualize things a little bit more. Ryan is an expert in the science, and so we kind of combine those. So it's like, okay, here's what we know scientifically speaking, but then I kind of like to pull back and put that into context with comparative histories versus the cigarette to the e-cigarette, and so we do things like that. And it's really across the board. It's here at Iowa State, DMAC. All the local high schools, middle schools. So I mean, we're really out there, and then we work with businesses in both counties, and it's pretty extensive.
Okay, thank you so much. I yield.
Yeah, thank you.
Senator Stanley?
May I address the speakers?
You may.
Did you participate in the development of the current policy? Could you give us any insight as to why it's not comprehensive, what the discussions were at the time?
I was not involved, so I was asked to assist. So that would be a better question.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Vanderheiden. I'm the Director of Student Wellness on campus. So I can kind of speak a little bit to the previous updates. So in 2016, there's a resolution that went in front of student government that they passed in support of adding electronic smoking devices to the current smoke-free. So when the state, Smoke-Free Air Act across the state was passed in 2008, all campuses across the state of Iowa became smoke-free. And then as the tobacco industry continues to change products, move products, those kinds of things, policies have had to kind of keep up with that. So in 2016, university moved at that time to add electronic smoking devices, but at that time did not make it a comprehensive tobacco-free policy. So in the overall definition, it wasn't comprehensive to include all current tobacco nicotine products. It just added that specific portion of it. So that was, whether right or wrong, I guess at the time, most universities at that time, so like UNI, Iowa, other universities that are comprehensive tobacco-free, when they are updating their policies, just made it comprehensive tobacco-free. So essentially what the resolution that will be coming forward later on in the agenda is really just updating the definition to be comprehensive tobacco-free. So it doesn't really update or change any other part of the policy. Really, it's just basically updating the definition so that it includes all current and future tobacco nicotine products. So as John and Ryan were sharing before, tobacco industry is constantly updating, evolving products. So if you can have like a blanket definition that will include all future products as well, you don't have to constantly kind of play catch up with your policy. It does that. The other nice piece too, so kind of going off of your question earlier about education, is that universities, when they do comprehensive tobacco-free policies, not only can you get signage and stuff that goes with that, but student wellness and student health and wellness, the larger unit, is planning to do, if it does pass and move forward, a larger kind of policy education campaign. That's usually what universities do connected to that to help inform really the larger student body as well as the broader community, because there's visitors and others that attend campus. So that's an important piece that we would work with the administration on to make sure happens. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I have
Great.
a couple of others,
Yeah,
if
great.
you wouldn't mind.
Yep.
I noticed that there are statistics in the resolution before
Mhm.
us today
Mhm.
about the use of e-cigarettes
Yes.
and electronic smoking devices
Yep.
on campus, but none about the smoke-free products that this resolution would be updating our policy to include.
There was some in there.
I just skimmed it.
Yeah. Can you defer?
Yeah. No, I was actually asking.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to be asking you.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any statistics about the prevalence of those products on our campus?
A little bit, and I might turn to you if you know kind of across the state of Iowa too. So we do the National College Health Assessment every 2 years. It's a pretty broad health survey, and really it's a pretty comprehensive health survey that we do. It looks at attitudes, behaviors, those types of things. There are some questions that look at other types of tobacco, so not just cigarettes, but like smokeless tobacco, hookah, e-cigarettes, those types of things. E-cigarettes, as you all can imagine, our numbers have gone up and probably likely will continue to go up if you think about particularly middle school, high school, because those numbers are trending and those students will be coming to campus. A lot of those students are already using, so I would imagine that our e-cigarette numbers will likely continue to go up, so I think it will continue to probably be an issue for a while. But with the other tobacco products, I know Iowa in general, like smokeless tobacco use, I think tends to be higher than national average. In comparison, I don't know the exact actual data point off the top of my head. I know we have some of that data. I can get it to you, but I know on average, Iowa tends to be higher in terms of some of the non-combustible tobacco use, particularly in high school. So a lot of those students, again, coming into college too. So I don't have the exact number. I know we do collect some of that data though.
Sure. And just
Yep.
to clarify, electronic smoking devices are covered by our current policy or are not?
Yes, they are.
They are.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent.
Yep.
And you mentioned that Iowa, UNI, the other regions have updated their policies as well regarding non-combustible smoking, that's an oxymoron, non-combustible tobacco
Yeah.
products.
Yep.
Do
Yeah.
you have you heard any of the discussion why? Could you give us some insight into that possibly?
So they, I don't know when exactly they passed. I feel like I think it was at least a couple years ago. When they passed theirs, it was at the time when they were including the e-cigarettes, but they also just at that time did all other tobacco products. I think what Iowa State at that time failed to do was include the other tobacco products as part of that. So basically, this resolution is just helping to close up that piece. But they're all comprehensive, tobacco-free. Actually, there's most kind of universities across the country. There's, I think, hundreds, I think actually in the low thousands of universities that are comprehensive tobacco-free. So I don't have any specific information from them, though. Yeah.
Awesome. If you could
Yep.
have that data sent to us about the prevalence of non-combustible products on campus, that would be, I
Yep.
think, a great help for a lot of us.
Yep. I can do
Thank
that.
you.
Yep.
And I'll move to add Senator Heasley's name to the roll.
There's been a motion to add Senator Heasley to the roll. Is there a second? Fantastic. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Senator Heasley has been added to the roll. There's been a motion to add Senator Hanyang to the roll, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Senator Hanyang has been added to the roll. Senator Zastro.
Hi, thank you for coming. One question that I had, if we removed nicotine products from campus, would this disincentivize students who already smoke from getting off drugs using nicotine products, or getting off smoking using nicotine products?
Yeah. So one of the things that this would actually bring the university in line with is actually the state of Iowa. The state of Iowa, actually the Iowa Code, when they first illegalized e-cigarette usage and possession for minors, they actually included everything, and they did a very good job of trying to foresee what new products would come out. Theoretically, if someone made a solar-powered or a hand-powered nicotine absorption machine, it would actually be covered under the Iowa law. They actually did a really good job of it. But one of the things they did put special caveats in there is for FDA-approved smoking cessation products. That's why one of the new things that has just recently come out that hasn't been an issue is chewing gum that is not intended to be a smoking cessation product, but rather a recreational nicotine product. So these are new things that are not meant to try and wean people off of cigarettes by using nicotine replacement therapy, which is what the patches or the nicotine gum that's just meant to be held in the mouth and just slow absorption of nicotine. These are intended for rapid ingestion of nicotine. So this, as far as I'm aware, this policy would exclude FDA-approved smoking cessation products, and I'm pretty sure that is one of the things, but I would double check on that. But I can say that this does bring Iowa State in line with Iowa law, which does exclude FDA-approved smoking cessation products.
Awesome, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. I yield.
Okay.
Senator Advait.
May I address the speaker?
You may.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for coming out tonight. I'd like to say that I do support reducing tobacco use, but I know that a lot of my fellow college students use, say, e-cigarettes or other nicotine products. So what would you say, as someone that's been working on policies like these, what would you say to people that might see this as clamping down on personal freedoms? Like, what's your, I guess, primary argument against that?
I might start by saying, like, the electronic smoking device is already in the policy, so technically students are not allowed to use any electronic smoking devices on campus already. So that's like the one caveat, but I'll actually have him address the question. Yeah.
We run into that question quite a bit if we're talking to housing. And the real simple answer is that there is no constitutional right to use the product. Okay, so I mean that's really the simple baseline answer. Of course, yes, you can make some of the others, and those arguments happen. But I'd also say, especially with combustible tobacco in general, I know again that's covered by the smoke-free policy now, but it does invade other people's personal space as well. And if we talk about just walking by the Campanile earlier this afternoon, I mean, there's pods all over the ground. I haven't seen this besides just in kind of the periphery of Iowa State, but spit in bottles and that just nasty stuff, right? So, and that's something we clearly don't want, but also the possibility of having third-hand smoke as well, not just secondhand. So there is the individualist argument, but it kind of goes both ways in that regard.
Senator Ricci.
Awesome. Thanks again. I wanted to quick ask you, because I kind of have a bit of a hunch. Do you have any breakdowns on usage by college? Love my constituents.
Do you have a number for that?
We have data that we can disaggregate by college. We just don't have it currently disaggregated by college. But that is something that we can do. We can work with our director of research and assessment in student affairs to be able to get that information. It just might take a little bit, but that is something that we can do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Senator Mitchell?
Hi. So I just had a question about what do you guys have any plans? I know like we're talking about college students, but I've noticed that a lot of college students are already addicted when they come here. So I was wondering if you have any plans to address middle school and high school students when they're starting vaping at age of 14, and then when they turn 18 they're addicted, and when you initiate a policy that says don't vape, it's really hard for them to stop that.
Right, so at YSS, so what we, in our prevention department, and Ryan could speak more to the Project Alert side, but we do have evidence-based programming that begins in 6th and 7th grade. And so we try to get ahead of not just nicotine, but other substances early. I will do one-time presentations and kind of informal multiple-day curriculums at all other local high school and middle schools in both Boone and Story County. And that is something, there is a person in my position in all counties. And so that's really the prevention side of things right now, is getting in there and discussing these things, just, in a more in-depth way than we're doing tonight, but to the kids beginning at that point in time, right around that age range, probably starting right at about 11 or 12 is when we start.
All right, thank you. I yield.
Senator Klein?
Hi, I wanted to thank you guys for coming in. I just had a quick question about enforcement of this policy. Should it go into place? What would that look like, and how would it be different from what we currently have?
So it doesn't look different from what currently is already in place. Essentially, like the update to the policy is really just addressing the definition of it to include all tobacco products. So the same way that e-cigarettes and smoking and all that stuff is enforced, it's the exact same process, so nothing really changes connected to that.
Can we run through what the current enforcement is then?
Yep. I don't know if I know too much about the enforcement piece. I know that ISU police can issue citations for smoking on campus, so on campus property. They can issue citations within, like if you use within the Department of Residence as an example, it's part of their Department of Residence code of conduct, so students would kind of go through a conduct process similar to if they used alcohol or other substances within their space. So kind of depending on where a student uses, kind of there's different processes in enforcement, and it would basically just follow the exact same processes that are already in place. Yeah. And I also wanted to share one more thing based on the other question about schools, is that most schools, like K-12 schools across the entire state of Iowa, have comprehensive tobacco and nicotine-free policies already. So students are already coming from school districts that would have the exact same policy as when they get to college campuses. So it'd actually be in line in support of what they're already kind of coming from already. So yeah.
All right. I actually had one other question too. I've been informed that the current policy says you can be in possession of tobacco products but not use them. Will this update, I guess, how does this policy differentiate between possession and use on campus?
So I think part of that would be a discussion with the policy review committee that would be looking at it. Essentially what the resolution is talking about is just updating, basically recommending to the administration to update the tobacco edition to be comprehensive tobacco free. So that's what the charge would be. When the policy committee actually looks at it, it'd be working with the Iowa Department of Public Health, YSS, and others. There's model policy language that IDPH has that's out on their website that you can look at, and it would probably just be getting in line with what some of those things are. I don't know if I can speak directly to that, but it'd probably be up to the policy committee to work with those entities to help draft the language for it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
I yield.
Any further questions for our speakers? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll now move into open forum. Open forum is a discussion for issues relevant to students. Any students wishing to speak now may approach the lectern. Okay, seeing none, we will move into adopting the agenda. Are there any motions for tonight's agenda? Senator Class.
I move to move 2019-3-026 Kuwaiti Student Association to the top of new business.
There's been a motion to add 2019-3-026 F funding Kuwaiti Student Association to the top of new business. Is there a second? There's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this has been moved to the top of new business. Senator Class.
I yield.
Senator Zastro.
Motion to add the bill that I sent y'all three earlier to at the bottom of new business regarding the MLO contract.
That would be 30, if you want to.
I'll move to add bill 2019-3-030 F, perhaps?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yep, okay, sounds good. Okay, is there a second? Are there any objections? Seeing none, this has been added to the bottom of new business. Senator Zastro?
I will move to adopt this week. I yield.
Senator Class.
This is a question. Did Treasurer Doherty send you a bill that needed to be added? She did not send you a bill, or does not need to be added?
I've not been sent a bill.
Okay, I yield.
There's been a motion to adopt tonight's agenda, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, tonight's agenda has been adopted. We'll now move into approval of last week's minutes. Are there any edits to last week's minutes? There's been a motion to adopt last week's minutes, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, last week's minutes have been approved. We'll now move into committee reports. So we'll go to rules with Acting Speaker Schrader.
I was not at rules, so Acting Vice Speaker Stanley can go.
Awesome. Yeah, so today, or last week in rules, we just did bylaw review. We looked at Chapter 7. There will be a comprehensive omnibus, if you will, bill to edit Chapters 6 and 7 coming up in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for that. And if you have any questions about it, you can refer to the minutes that I sent out yesterday, I believe it was.
Senator Heasley.
I was actually wondering where the minutes were. I believe the only thing we received were something called Nimitz, which I'm not exactly aware of what that is, but I'll let it slide. I yield.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll move into Finance Committee with Senator Class.
Yeah, so annuals are going on. We have another long meeting tomorrow night from 4 to 10. Also, point of information, a bill will be added about asset. That's what I asked about. Let me think, sorry. We have a lot of things for new business, but tonight, things that we're actually seeing for funding for us is the Kuwaiti Student Association that was sent through unfavorably. And yeah, I will be adding a bill. I might need help trying to figure out how to do that after the Y to the I to people looking at me. Thank you. I yield.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move into SI Committee with anybody? Senator Heasley.
At SI, we saw two bills. We saw Senator Tonette's bill, which we have sent favorably, and then we saw the resolution for the smoke-free campus, which we sent no bias because we didn't see, we weren't able to talk to the authors of the bill. So that is all we have.
Any questions for Senator Heasley? Seeing none, we'll move to PR Committee with Senator Hanyoung.
All right, PR met last night, but
tonight's most important thing is we're seating a new senator. So Mariana is joining PR, and we're really excited to have her on board with us. Some other things that we talked about last night is we went over the open house events and how we can make them more effective for the future. We know that the one that was on Friday, thank you to everyone who came, but it was a little bit less turnout than one on Tuesday. We want to make sure that we're having those be effective. We also looked at having handouts for those of you who are aware of the snack situation in the Wessos, being able to hand those out as soon as possible during the elections, get the word out via a sick little flyer with a QR code that links directly to the voting link. So good stuff with that. As always, if you want to be in tonight's recap of the meeting, just hit up Mackenzie.
Any questions? Seeing none, we will move into diversity and inclusion with Senator Samuel.
Yeah, nothing new to report.
Any questions? Seeing none, we will now move into civic engagement with the beautiful Senator Tonette.
Amazing. So we do have new things to report. So we've had an interesting week. So last week I told you all about our DOR initiatives. So one of the initiatives we were working on was getting voter registration forms at hall desks. And the other one is getting voter registration forms in move-in packets. I'm sure you all know about the bill I sent out on Sunday. We're seeing a resolution tonight about the move-in packets. It's essentially just me saying, hey, this is a really good idea. I'd like your support on this going into our meeting tomorrow with Pete Englund. And then as for the hall desks, we actually got an approval from Pete Englund on that one. So that's some snaps to that. So we will now be seeing voter registration forms put at all the hall desks and mail rooms starting pretty soon. So that's already an awesome thing that we've kind of been able to implement with the committee, so I'm really excited about that. The forms are already filled out to be sent to the county auditor. They already have postage, and they're at the hall desks where people can mail things. So fill it out at the hall desk, stick it in outgoing mail, and that's really cool. So that's something we've gotten accomplished. And then sort of aside from the DOR stuff, we're starting to look into how we're going to start doing outreach next semester, because the general is going to be coming up pretty quick once we come back to school. So we're already trying to get some kind of organization work ready to go. So when we get back into the swing of things next year, we'll be ready to get the word out. That's all I have.
Any questions? Seeing none, we will move into comments from the executive branch with our beautiful IT director.
I'm going to stand up like Austin. As you know, many members of the cabinet are in DC right now, so we didn't have cabinet this week. I just want to take this opportunity to say that elections isn't less than a week from now, so good luck to everyone running. And we have this candidate website page, where we are focusing on giving you guys a platform to talk about what you're running on and headshots and stuff like that. If you're not on the web, or if you're not on the webpage, please contact me and I'll make sure you guys are on there, but that's all I have.
Sorry, I also have something to add. So Sustainability Committee met last night, and Carissa got funding for her Freddie compost project, so that was super exciting. So we spent some of the Green Initiatives Fund, and then we also have Cyanite coming up on March 27th at 7 p.m.
Any questions for our stand-in presidents? Seeing none, we will now move into external matters. Seeing as we have none, we'll move into internal matters. Under special orders, we have 2019-3-016 SG, seating a senator to the Public Relations Committee with Acting Speaker Schrader.
Great. So if Mariana or Senator Gonzalez, if you want to go and explain why you want to be part of PR, that would be great.
Hi, everyone. So I'm really excited to be joining PR committee. Currently, I'm a first-year student, double majoring in political science and public relations, so that's right up my alley. And the committee has been great so far, and I've enjoyed tabling and handing out snacks last night at the presidential debate and enjoying those types of initiatives. So, yeah, that's all.
Great. Mariana seems qualified. With that, I will call to question.
There has been a call to question. and a second. And there's been an objection. So the motion has been withdrawn. Acting Speaker Schrader. Acting Vice Speaker Stanley.
Great, thank you. I do want to ask you some serious questions, though. I know that you are probably qualified for the job, but
Oh,
I think we
absolutely.
should do our due diligence with every single appointee that we have before us.
Okay.
So first off, what are some ideas that you have to improve the structure of PR as it stands now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we are all aware of the snack situation in the MU, I'm currently also the office assistant, so I was made aware of that. So next year and moving forward, PR committee, I would like to see like a place where we can hold those types of items that we're using, such as campaign materials, promotional materials, snacks, and other items. Whether is that like the place of a committee member or like the director's place of living. Also, I have just been like swimming with like a couple ideas and I haven't like announced any of them yet, so stay tuned for those. But I am really excited about like outreach because both of the campaigns are really excited about getting to connect with students. And so I would love to be a part of that.
Cool. And yeah, it's funny that you bring up elections because that seems to be the last major PR opportunity for student government this term. So do you have any specific election-focused ideas?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up. So, as we mentioned, we have an abundance amount of snacks. And so on March 3rd and 4th, students, if you're watching, please be outside of, PR committee will be outside of Parks Library from 12 to 3, tabling and giving snacks as incentives to vote. And if you are really enthusiastic about it, you might get 2 snacks. So be on the lookout for that.
Awesome. So my final question, just in terms of student outreach, I guess both broadly and widely across colleges and student engagement, what, in your opinion, is the ideal PR initiative?
That's a loaded question, but I'll attempt to answer it. The PR initiative, I would say, is to give student government a platform to speak about our ideals and our values and to connect with the student body as best as we can and work with other departments and residencies to address that mission.
An excellent answer. You were prepared for that question. She is very qualified, and I will call the question.
There's been a call to question. Is there's a second? Is there any objections? Seeing none, we will now move into a placard vote. There's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this bill has been passed with unanimous consent. Thank you. We'll now move in. Oh, there's been a motion to add Senator Litford to the roll. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Senator Litford has been added to the roll. There's a motion to remove Senator Samanu from the roll. Are there any objections? Seeing none, he has been removed. We will now move into 2019-3-023F, funding a presentation controller with Senator Searles.
Hey, so yeah, it's a $25 bill to get just like a Bluetooth presentation controller for a computer. This could be used for programs, but also for any other presentation that student government does. So yeah, it's really not that complicated.
There's been a call to question and there's been a second. Are there any objections? There's been an objection. Do you withdraw your motion? Yes. Yeah, okay. Senator Han Young.
Okay, the one thing I wanted to say is something that I already told Senator Searles and Vice Speaker Schrader is that the Memorial Union for Senate meetings can provide those clickers free of charge as part of the streaming, but looking at it from a holistic standpoint, this is something, $25. So with that, I'll call a question.
There's been a call to question and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will now move into a roll call vote. Advait? Yes. Olicard? Yes. Bender? Yes. Blair? Yes. Kahn? Yes. Crabb? Yes. Donlinger? Yes. Fritz? Yeah. Green? Yes. Gonzalez? Han Young? Heasley? Johnson? Class? Klein? Klein? Litford? Meredith? Mitchell? Rice? Greenshee? Schrader? Searles? Stanley? Samuel? Tonet? Zastro? With a vote of 23 to 3 to 1, this bill passes. We'll now move on to 2019-3-014 SR, support of comprehensive tobacco-free campus policy with Senator Alucard.
Hi guys, sorry for not having YSS listed in the agenda earlier, that was my bad. So as we kind of discussed, the change in policy really is just updating the definition to include all tobacco products that currently exist and that could exist, just to stay ahead of the tobacco industry, and they'll all be treated the same way. And like it was asked earlier, enforcement of the policy is not going to change. We'd work with administration, student health and wellness to do education for the campus community about the update. And as we brought up earlier, we're the last Regent University to have this. It's also been successfully implemented at other universities across the country. My own alma mater actually went from smoke-free to tobacco-free in the middle of my undergrad, and it was implemented successfully with well-developed policy education and had no issues. So with that, I'm open for any discussion that y'all might have. I yield.
Senator Stanley.
Sure. I'm just a little curious about something. I'd like to direct your attention to I believe it's the 6th whereas clause and the 6th footnote. So I note that there is an abundance of statistics here concerning the use of e-cigarettes and just e-cigarette use. But that's already covered under the policy, and that whereas clause has just that one sentence at the end that says use of tobacco in other forms, aside from those three which are covered under our policy, has also increased among all ISU students. If you remember, that was the question that I addressed to the people, to our lovely speakers today. And I looked at the footnote there that provides the source for that information, but I was only able to find, when I searched for that, data concerning use of cigarettes, e-cigarettes, and hookah, all of which are covered under our policy. So I suppose, is there, Senator Alucard, can you provide us this data? Is it available?
I do have the 350 slide PowerPoint summary of the report that I can email all of you if that is what you guys would like. I know that the question earlier also asked about the statistics specifically for non-combustible forms of tobacco, but essentially if you look at tobacco-free policy percentages minus smoke-free policy percentages, that's your variability there. And it also goes to show that the policy education that was done when the policy was updated in 2016 was suboptimal, and that's one of the reasons why we see people vaping and using electronic smoking devices on campus a lot. So I can go ahead and send that survey if you guys would like to see that. But it is inclusive of a bunch of different points, including alcohol, other related health behaviors as well. And it is categorized at this point, like Brian said, between undergraduate and graduate students, not within colleges. So that would take time to desegregate that. So I can go ahead and send that if that's what you're looking for.
Yes, that would be great. I know I should certainly like to see it. You mentioned in that response that education was suboptimal regarding non-combustible forms of tobacco. Is there anything, can you elaborate on that beyond what's in the bill itself?
Yeah, there was none. So they updated the policy and there was no policy education. So students didn't necessarily know what that meant, and staff and faculty didn't either. I've heard anecdotal reports of students just vaping in class and instructors not necessarily knowing how to respond to that because they're not sure necessarily if vaping is covered by the current policy, which it is. But a bigger problem is that any update that is made should have effective policy education associated with it, not just like, cool, we're going to update it and then hope everyone figures it out, because it was evident in 2016 that that was not effective.
So to clarify, the intent of this bill is to advocate for an update to the policy to include non-combustible tobacco products, as well as requesting that the university provide education on e-cigarettes specifically.
On all tobacco use specifically.
Sure.
So that is in the resolve clause, just to work with not only the student health and wellness unit, but also community partners as well, including YSS, to update everything. And so that's actually what I'm an intern for, is to help develop that policy, education.
Very well. Thank you. I'll yield.
Senator Zastro?
Yeah, one thing I would just like to add to that, for the where they have statistics of the growth of e-cigarettes over the course of a certain period of time, I don't think they have data over things that they didn't know that they needed to be taking data over. So that's the purpose of getting this policy that covers devices and intake devices that we don't consider worth taking data over yet. So I just think that's another good thing to think about. I yield.
Senator Green?
The final where resolved clause only lists university departments, but typically when we send these, it lists specific people in the university departments. I'm just curious why this one's different.
I'm going to yield that answer to Brian, actually.
Yeah. So, oh, that's very loud. I mean, yeah, I would imagine that, particularly within those, it would go to the like the top administrative person within. So, like within the ISU Student Health and Wellness, as an example, the assistant vice president for Student Health and Wellness, Aaron Baldwin, is like the kind of the top person within that. For ISU Department of Public Safety, Chief Newton. So I think when planning this, it was meant to go to the top kind of administrative person under those, but those really being the key kind of entities around campus connected to this type of policy that should be at the table regarding policy update stuff. So that would be my recommendation in terms of who it would go to.
All right, great. Just as long as it goes to the right place. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and just to add on that, student health and wellness is a collective unit of multiple departments as well. And so that's why we didn't just say like student wellness. So some of it was intentionally broad.
All right, cool. I yield.
Senator Heasley?
So I was wondering, on line 38, it says ISU students perceive that over 90% of the student body have used electronic smoking devices. I was just wondering where you got that number.
So that is part of the report that we're actually trying to send out to all of you guys. So the question is asked about perceived usage amongst university students. And so the response to that was that percentage.
Senator Searles? Senator Stanley?
I'd just like to address a question to our speakers, specifically our guests from the Health and Wellness Department. What is have there been any projections for the cost of this education component?
So part of that, part of the work that we do within student wellness is developing like social marketing material, campaign, that type of stuff, education around all health wellness topics. This is included within our overall mission. So it's part of the nature and the scope of our work already. So our professional staff and working with interns and others, it would be one of the projects that we would have them do. So it's kind of already part of the scope of the work in terms of developing some of that. A lot of it, particularly around when you look at other campuses that roll out different types of things, the universities are required to put out every year like a notification around their alcohol and other drug program. So it goes out to all students at the beginning of every year. So an update like this would be included in something like that. When we think about social media, like those types of things, we'd have information to put out on those platforms. On our, education on websites, those types of things, information that gets sent out to faculty, department chairs, through working through a lot of these. So I think a lot of the things in terms of actual like content development and things would be relatively low cost or within the nature of the scope of our work already. Anything outside of that, like print material and stuff, I think probably would have some type of cost. There are grants that are available across the country. When colleges and universities do become tobacco-free, there is access to be able to get money in terms of policy education, updating signage, those types of things. So that's something that the committee could look into if they're interested in applying for some of that funding, if they wanted to do something broader than that. Those opportunities do exist, and that would be something that they could consider as well.
Awesome, an excellent answer. I asked because I sit on the special student fee committee, and the Department of Student Wellness requested a $10 increase in the fee for next fiscal year, and the projections that they showed us were quite dire if they did not receive the fee. So I was concerned about the potential cost of including more services.
Yeah, and that, I think, the Thielen Student Health Center specifically.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yes.
we're a different department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep.
In that case, I'll yield.
Senator Searles?
I'm just going to kind of change the topic. Well, not the topic, but because it's the same thing. I just wanted to add a little bit of substance as a sponsor of this. So with the electronic cigarette or vape machines, devices, dear Lord, with the ban on those, and just give a little bit of background on use and possession in the Department of Residence itself as a community advisor, some of the things that we've seen. So with the ban taking place in 2016, obviously, as already been talked about, that doesn't mean people are, oh, okay, well, we're just going to not use these anymore, let's put them away. What that really means is they're going to either cover up their smoke detectors or use them privately in their room. But since that, we have been able to use that with the Department of Residence as CA for enforcing policy. That is something we can back up. And I think it might have been 2017, 2018. So after that ban, there was actually a student had a vape machine device in their hand, not using it, standing in a residence hall, and it exploded. And it led to, I think, second-degree burns on the resident and then a fire in the residence hall. And that was purely just by having, it was a poorly made device. And we've seen an increase in the use of those, and we'll continue to see those increases, has already been backed up by data as well. But these types of policies, as they've outlined, they allow and open up possibilities for increased educational opportunities and state-funded increased educational opportunities, which helps in the CA role, enforcing those. A lot of the times, the smoke detectors that are, as Freddie Court, one of the highest percentage of calls we get are fire alarms. And it's either burnt food or smoking/vaping inside dorms or apartments and residence halls. So this type of policy change, while it goes beyond the electronic use and goes into the non-electronic, any tobacco use, that's something we also have seen increases in, and we also have had issues with, spitting on floors, in hallways, just kind of all over the place. So it's definitely an issue that we've seen in the residence hall, and it's something that while the policy isn't going to automatically force all the students to stop using it, it will give grounds for the university to provide more opportunities and more resources, and the state to provide those resources to the students, which will help make a change inevitably, hopefully, as we continue to see this increase. So I just want to add some substance to that as well. I yield.
Senator Klein? Any further motions or comments on the bill? There's been a call to question, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will now move into a placard vote on the bill. There's been a call for unanimous. What? Okay, there has been an objection for unanimous consent, and there's been a withdrawal. Oh. What is that? Okay, we'll now move into a roll call vote. Advape. Yes. Alucard. Yes. Bender. Yes. Blair. Yes. Khan. Yes. Crab. Domlinger. Yes. Fritz. Yeah. Green. Yes. Gonzalez. Yes. Hanyang. Yes. Heasley. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Class. Yes. Klein. Yes. Klein. No. Litford. Yes. Meredith. Yes. Mitchell. Rice? Rienchi? Schrader? No. Searles? Stanley? Samuel? Tonet? Zastro? Crab? With a vote of 24. One sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 24. With a vote of 24 to 2, 24 to 2 to 1, this bill passes. There's been a motion to add Senator Ludwig to the roll. Are there any objections? Seeing none, he has been added. We'll now move on to 2019-3-015Y, Finance Director Scholarship Change with Senator Litford.
Oh, yes. So this is just changing the scholarship that the finance director receives to a full in-state scholarship instead of 3/4. I believe this is needed because they do a lot. Madison and Seth last year are constantly answering emails. I mean, even in here it says how they work over 60 hours in annuals, so I just think it's a needed change.
Any comments or motions on the bill? Acting Speaker Schrader.
So while I appreciate the intent of the bill, and I understand that our finance directors do a lot, we all do a lot. Almost none of us get any sort of compensation. I receive a parking pass, and I am required to do about 15 hours of work every week, which is inhibitive of other activities. Student government is about serving students, and that's going to require some sacrifice, especially as we are in a season where we have to cut a large amount of money from our budget. I appreciate Finance Director Mueller. I appreciated Finance Director Carter and Valentino before them, but a 3/4 scholarship I think is adequate to compensate for the role in a way that ensures that this position means that you probably can't hold a job for many other hours. So that's the reasoning behind the compensation. We want to make sure that people can do the role and not have finances be an issue. But I think that 3/4 is a good number. I don't think we should be spending more money on ourselves. We're all asked to sacrifice for the sake of the organization. So with that, I would be against this bill.
Senator Stanley.
So first, I'd like to ask a couple of points of clarification to anyone who can answer, probably someone from Finance Committee. The restitution is currently 3/4 of out-of-state tuition, is that correct? In-state, 3/4 of in-state, okay. And that comes out to approximately how much? How much would we be increasing the reimbursement by? Okay, could we get some numbers on that? Senator Rienchi?
I literally just had this up a moment ago. I'm so sorry. For a whole year, in-state costs about $9,162.
Okay, so I just did a quick calculation here on my handy-dandy phone calculator, and the amount that we are increasing the scholarship by is approximately slightly less than $2,300, and divided over the $44 that every student pays is the student activity fee, the amount that we are increasing the scholarship by comes out to approximately 51.14, I think, times the student activity fee. So 52 students will be paying their student activity fee to increase the scholarship to full from 3/4. That's not a positive or a negative statement, just something for y'all to think about while you ponder whether or not this bill should pass. I'll yield.
Senator Klass. Oh, Senator Litford.
I mean, I do see where you're coming from, Acting Speaker Schrader. I know that if I was the finance director, I wouldn't be able to have a job and I have to have a job to be able to feed myself. And so I just think this change is needed to just help them because they do so much. And I understand that we all do so much, but I know I work 18 hours a week, but I know if I was the finance director, I would not be able to do that. So take that as, if you will. I yield.
Senator Zastro?
Yeah, without speaking for or against the merits of this bill, I don't think it's very helpful in general to talk about like the amount of cents per student that we're paying or the amount of students that are paying for a specific change. I don't know what purpose that really serves in general. I yield.
Senator Searles?
Okay, so couple things. We're talking a lot about finance directors having a job, and I just want to remind you all that Finance Director Mueller is my coworker as a CA, which does require a lot of hours. There are restrictions as a CA on what your outside activities may be. Now, what's on paper is different than actuality. So having a job as a finance director, Finance Director Mueller stretches herself incredibly thin. And I've seen that both in student government and as a community advisor. She does it all. I don't know how. I don't know if she sleeps. But I do have a question that's unrelated to that. So just the job part, just a reminder, she does have a job, and I work with her. We talk a lot about cuts, and I'm just curious where this kind of fits into that. I know it's changing the fees. It's not the same idea, but when we're talking about the idea and like, I don't want to say ethics of reducing what we're spending and where we're spending, and I know Finance Committee is doing the same thing, and I think you're cutting a lot of money overall. So Senator Libford, do you want to talk about the debate that went on about that?
So this value would come from that same pool of money that we actually need to cut, that $300,000 deficit, that because student government, we see our own budget in annuals, so this will come from that. So I yield.
Okay, so just to clarify, we're cutting ourselves, but we're also trying to increase a few $1,000s on this scholarship. Okay, I yield.
Okay, so to give a little more perspective to Senator Stanley's figures, assuming current enrollment, this is about 7 cents per student. So take that for what it's worth. Secondly, if I also see merit to the argument where why not the speaker, why not the vice speaker, why not any of us, because we're all fairly involved. And last point I'd like to bring up is this is something of a bad look, given that we're having enrollment go down and finances drying up. It's easy for students to say, oh, student government cut funding for clubs and our funding criteria, and then they paid themselves an extra $2,000. So given that we're looking to build trust, and I'm not really sure that's a good message to send out, maybe. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Senator Alucard?
I also agree that it is not a good message to be sent out, and I have a question for Senator Lipford, I guess. Does the same scholarships that cover the full tuition of the president and the half tuition of the vice president also come from the same group of money that we're cutting, but then also proposing a budget increase for the finance director? So was there discussion about potentially lowering other scholarships or other positions to maybe accommodate this rather than allocating it here? I just am wondering, like, if this is the only conversation that's been happening, or if because of concerns for cuts, we've also discussed cutting other positions to accommodate for the amount of work done in this position.
This is separate. I mean, yeah, we need to make cuts, but I just don't want to see our finance director getting run thin. So.
Okay, I yield.
Senator Johnson?
I think that it doesn't take looking at a lot of history to see that wealthy students tend to have more opportunities than poorer students. And I think one of the things that comes with giving a full scholarship is it opens the door for students who do not have other funding to take some of these positions on student government, and I think that should be part of the discussion.
Senator Ricci.
Motion to add Senator Mass to the quorum.
Seeing none, he has been added to the roll.
And I think it's a really good point to build on. But this is also still a 3/4 scholarship, and I think there's a lot of value in how much that is. And I also fear for the concern of students looking in and saying, hey, we did make changes to PNC, we did make changes in what we can fund, and then to put money back into a single student in student government who does a lot of work, who does a lot of valuable work, and who had this position before I did. I think it's just something that we should make sure that we're making sure that money goes towards as many students as we can, not always one who is currently receiving what I would argue is a fair and deserved compensation. I yield.
Senator Stanley.
Sure. I'll build on my earlier point. At that time, I hadn't necessarily clarified my opinion on this bill. I was just stating some numerical facts. I think while there is an inherent contradiction in breaking down, contributions per student and how many students are contributing to this money, I think it's important and it helps to keep things in perspective. Right now, the question before me is the finance director and all of the work that they do, is that workload, does that merit, I suppose, funneling the contributions of 52 students towards their reimbursement? From my interactions with Finance Director Carter and Finance Director Mueller, I would say yes. I think the sheer amount of the work that they do and the sheer comprehensiveness of the duties that they are asked to perform, I think that if you asked 52 students to perform those same duties, they would be hard-pressed to do so better than those two very, very capable and excellent individuals. However, I do agree that with the cuts that we have to make on our budget and on organization's budget, I'm unsure how we can cut organizations' budgets with impunity while refusing to do the same to our own. I'll also point out that 2 years ago, the vice president's scholarship was 3/4 and the finance director's was half, and it was switched. Perhaps it's a little too early to be reevaluating the reimbursement of the finance director. Seeing no other placards up, I think we've all clarified our thoughts on this bill, and so I'll call it to question.
There's been a call to question and a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will now move into a roll call vote. Advait? No. Alucard? No. Bender? Yes. Blair? No. Khan? No. Crab? No. Donlinger? No. Fritz? No. Green? No. Gonzalez? No. Hanyoung? No. Heasley? No. Johnson? No. Class? Klein? No. Klein? Lipford? Yes. Ludwig? Yes. Mass? Yes. Meredith? No. Mitchell? No. Reese? Moving down. Ricci? No. Schrader? No. Searles? No. Stanley? Samuel? No. Tonette? No. Zastro? Klein? No. Reese? Stanley? Yes. Okay. What? With a vote of 5 to 21 to 3, this bill fails. We'll now move into new business. We'll move to 2019-3-026F, Kuwaiti Student Association with Senator Litford. Oh. Senator Class.
If you want to go up to the lectern and podium lectern.
Point of information, this is still new business.
Yeah, title. I move to waive second read.
There's been a motion to waive second read, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, second read has been waived. Senator Class.
Awesome. If you want to explain what you're requesting money for, and then your organization quickly.
Yes, so we're the Kuwaiti Student Association. We have an event on March 1st, Sunday, and the event is our national day. We're celebrating it. And the funding is for catering and the room reservation.
So as everyone in Senate should be aware, we as Finance Committee sent this I move to accept Finance Committee's amendments. Sorry.
There's been a motion to propose the Finance Committee amendments, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we are now in discussion of the amendments. And there's been a call to question. Is there a second? Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will now move into a placard vote on the amendments, and there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Seeing none, these amendments have been accepted. Senator Class.
Thank you. Finance Committee sent this unfavorably. We have eligibility requirements. The first one being that organizations that are over a year old have to have $20 per fiscal year per student, so that student government is not the sole funder of their events. In talking with the club yesterday, they do not have that requirement. They don't charge dues, and they actually don't do fundraising according to them. They put on this event last year through Event Funding Board funds and are coming in asking for us. And so it's an eligibility requirement that Finance Committee could not waive, so we sent it unfavorably, and I will yield.
Any further discussion on the bill? Senator Zastrow?
Yeah, I just wanted to, in Finance Committee yesterday, Treasurer Dowry and I both wanted to send this bill to Senate because if it was not seen by Senate and if the money was not approved, the event would not happen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why we sent it here instead of tabling it in Finance Committee. Could you talk a little more about what happened last year with funding and why you thought student government would be able to fund you?
Last year we had funding from the event. Yes. We had that funding, and they funded everything that we requested last year, and it was a success. We were expecting like 80 students to come and join us, and 100 students did join, and that was 20 more than what we expected, and it was a success because they all had fun, and yeah, I guess.
Yeah. I just wanted to see this bill, which is why we sent it to the Finance Committee. I yield.
Senator Hong Young?
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for coming tonight. Just a question about the event this year. Have you reached out to the Event Funding Board this year to ask if they can fund the event, or is there an issue with that?
Yes, we did, but unfortunately I couldn't attend the meeting, and neither did one of my officers could because of classes and exams.
So they were unable to fund the event because nobody was there?
Yes.
Okay. I yield for now.
Senator Soros?
Okay. I was in the room during the allocations yesterday, during the meeting, which was in between allocations. And what a lot of the kind of debate that I heard, as a non-member of Finance Committee, I'll just speak openly. There's a lot of concern because a lot of people tried to figure out if there's any way this is eligible at all. If it could be switched to a different account, if it could be looked at under, if we waived a bylaw or did something. There was a mention, no one said the word, but it is also ineligible under the Excellence Fund. And I'll ask Finance Committee, or I guess Senator Class. Senator Class. Is there any feasible way that this can, with our current written rules, be funding eligible?
Through what account are you asking?
Is there any way? Senator Zastro, would you like to answer that?
So events are not funding eligible, clubs are. The organization hosting this event is funding ineligible. The classification for funding eligibility is the only thing from PNC that requests coming through the events account must be bound by. Special projects is bound by PNC. Senate discretionary is bound by PNC. This is not a green initiative. This would not come out of our operating account. This could not come out of annual allocations. It is an event that has happened before, so it cannot come out of the Excellence Fund. I do not believe that there is any account that this could come out of.
And as someone who doesn't really know the rules, I'll ask some questions, and then I'll field it to whoever seems like they want to answer. It is my belief that student government, we obviously were representatives, right? And whether it was a miscommunication or not, the event happens on Sunday, and it was a success last year. And looking up, is this the same thing as Liberation Day?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm trying to frame that in what some of us may view our national holidays as. And I know that you can't. When we bring in rules, fine, but it's rules that we made. And so I will then ask, is there anything that, like a bylaw that can be waived or something that can be done to make it eligible? And the reason I'm asking, and you can fight against it, I'm just throwing out every opportunity, because if we're going to sit here and debate it, we might as well try to get it passed, right? I mean, then it was sent for that reason, so let's figure it out. This is an opportunity to fund an event that is proven successful, or fund a club that has been proven to be successful in their event. And this is the type of event that we look for, and this is the type of thing, speaking personally, where we want to allow students to, one, experience their own identities at Iowa State and be able to celebrate their own identities and their own culture, but also experience the culture and identities of other people with events like this. So, Senator Class, do you have an answer to that convoluted question?
I will try my best. So the problem is that events are not eligible, clubs are. So the short answer is no. We spent a lot of time in Senate or in Finance Committee thinking about it. As Senator Zastro said, it's not a green initiative. It can't go through the excellence count, because they had asked for it last year. They didn't go through us, but they asked. And according to how we read things, and if we want to get into a circular debate about that, we can. However, I would rather not. Clubs are eligible, clubs are eligible, events are not. This club does not meet the eligibility requirements, which is something that we cannot waive according to, like finance couldn't waive them. A way, I guess, that I really would stress not to do would be to waive eligibility requirements. And maybe rules knows more about if that's in bylaws. I don't think it is. I know that finance cannot waive them. That is one thing that is very highly stipulated. If we want to open the door that we will waive funding eligibility requirements, great, but also know the floodgates will open, and that's ominous for the point of that we don't have money to fund everyone and everything they want. And I'll yield.
Yeah, well.
My answer.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and I'm not suggesting one thing or the other. I'm trying to explore the opportunities. So I see the exceptions and what cannot be waived for funding eligibility. I see that now. Senator Stanley, do you want to speak about the aspects of waiving that?
Sure. How I understand our current delineation of the motion to waive bylaws, there's a restriction under that clause restricting bylaws that can be waived to only chapters 4 and 5. I suppose if you really wanted to, you could waive that restriction and then just keep going from there and waive the relevant bylaw in chapter 11. I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head that binds whatever account to PNC. That binds, in this case, I suppose, Senate discretionary to PNC. I will stay to the spirit of the question that you asked me and keep my own thoughts on the matter to my speaking privilege.
All right. I just have one more question. What's the time on this? Okay. I think 5 minutes. So you were there yesterday. I saw you there yesterday. Yes. You're here today. We asked you to come back today. And we kind of touched on this, but I want to really hit home on this. What happens if you don't get this funding?
I don't know. Everything is set to be done on Sunday, and if I didn't get it, then it will get in my account. So with the help of this funding, then I could cover the half, and with help of some of the students could pay with me, but the half, because we're all students here. We cannot pay this bill.
Yeah, Senator Crabb. Do you want to answer that question? To be explicit, sorry.
Okay, hi. So I'm on the catering website, and I'm also a catering intern. So, so catering items ordered. Wait, never mind. Cancellations within 5 business days prior to your event would be subject to a 100% cancellation fee. So the thing is, they would still be paying for it, if that makes sense. So like whether we fund it or not, it's coming out of somebody's. Well, I don't know if that is something you guys care about or not, but I just want to put the information out for you folks. Yeah, did you guys already reserve it?
Yes. Everything's ready.
When did you reserve it?
When?
Yeah. Like when did you put it, when did you get your contract in?
Last week.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I yield.
Okay. Seeing as I still hold the floor. Senator Klass, if this club were to hold this event and go into debt, are debt contracts only for clubs with funding eligible?
Yes.
And what is the timeline for a club to be funding eligible? Say they started enforcing, is it a year of?
They have to charge dues of 20, well, they have to have an income of $20 per student per fiscal year. A way to do that is they could charge ticket prices to the event they're hosting on Saturday or on Sunday. They could charge it via dues. They could charge it via fundraising. And I have other question for the representative later. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. I'm going to yield for now.
Senator Advait?
Permission to address the speaker?
You may.
All right. Do you have any other funding sources whatsoever?
No.
No, okay. And what's your projected attendance for the event? So last year, how many people did you have show up?
We expected 80, and more than 100 showed up.
More than 100 showed up?
Yes.
And how passionate would you say that these people were about coming to the event? So I'm thinking in terms of having an entry fee or having a donation thing at the event itself to help you fund it. Do you think that's a viable thing to do?
I don't know, because when I had it for the event authorization, I said that it's not funding, like I cannot accept any fee. So I'm not sure if I can do that.
I see. And do you see any areas where you could cut costs? I mean, I don't really think so. That's a redundant question. So, Yeah, all I'm gonna say is if this is a clear violation of PNC, I think it's pretty cut and dry. As much as I would like to see this event happen, it sets a dangerous precedent to, we have rules for a reason and we are a government of laws, so just willy-nilly moving things around might not be the best thing to do. I yield.
Senator Stanley.
All right, so I'm going to lay out first the process that we're going to have to do with this. If you would like to go through with it, we would have to waive bylaw 4.12.11.1, which reads, this motion referring to the motion to waive a bylaw, shall be in order only for bylaws having to do with the operating procedure of the Senate or Senate committees, parentheses, chapters 4 and 5, close parentheses. By waiving that bylaw, you are now leaving when this motion is in order and for what this motion is in order entirely ambiguous and leaving it up to, as I read it, the complete discretion of the chair. Others read it differently. So that's steps 1 and 2. You'll have to hope that our wonderful chair sees and agrees with your reading of this bill. And then you would have to waive bylaw 11.3.5.1.3, which states that organizations are funding eligible if they meet the eligibility requirements outlined in priorities and criteria. Now, let us consider what is the precedent that we are going to set by doing this. If we waive that first bylaw, everything in the bylaw document is free game. Senator Zastrow, would you like to say something?
I would just like to say if we're changing what, if we're working on bylaws, I would much rather change this to events account and waive the bylaw that says that things going through events account need to be funding eligible.
That sounds like a much more reasonable idea than what I had in mind. I was thinking that we might as well just bin PNC altogether, because if we waive that, then nothing matters anymore. But the question is, we still must consider what the precedent is that we're setting. We had a debate like this at the start of the year, and I think it's rather ironic that we're going to bookend our term with this debate. I will put my point on hold for a second and address a question to the speaker, if I may. You mentioned earlier that you were unable to have your meeting with the event funding board because none of you could make it. They were completely inflexible on scheduling. They provided you no alternative times?
No.
I find that rather odd. But I empathize with the plight of this group, and I think this is a worthy event. If you are open to waiving the bylaws around the events account and changing it to that, we can go through that. That will be an option. We will be happy to facilitate the rules procedures, but I do not think that it is a good idea and a good precedent to set. If we find ways to skirt our rules for every group that comes in here that we agree with their event, we undermine the strength of our bylaws and our set rules of order considerably. I'll yield.
Senator Class.
Okay. So there are things that are passed down via Finance Committee to Finance Committee and aren't in the bylaws. It's just kind of how we operate. So I'm going to amend to move this to events account, because if you read in the events account bylaws, funds from this account shall not be bound by priorities and criteria. The common knowledge in Finance Committee means that it still requires eligibility requirements, but since that's not expressly delineated, let's just go for it.
There's been a motion to amend the accounts to events account. Is there a second? Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will now move into a placard vote. Oh no, what am I doing? Sure, UC, yeah. We are now into discussion on the amendment, Senator Class.
Call question.
There's been a called question, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? There's been an objection. Do you withdraw? Yeah. Okay. Senator Heasley.
I think as much as we all want to be able to help this group, just to reiterate what other people have said about going against our rules to help funding ineligible things pass, it's not a good precedent. So I really don't think that we should go through all this trouble to do it. I mean, it sucks, but I think we should just vote no on this bill because it's funding ineligible and we have rules that we're supposed to follow for a reason. So with that, I'll yield.
Senator Searles.
Yeah, okay, so I'm kind of asking for clarification where it says events account, funds from this account are not bound by prioritization criteria, excluding the subsection regarding eligibility requirements. Is that not correct? Senator Zastro? Is that old?
There was a copy of the bylaws that I had earlier this year that had that stipulation in it. Looking at the bill that we passed last week, updating Chapter 11, that is not in there. I don't know if that is a change that we made intentionally or not, but it is currently not in the bylaws that things coming from the event account must be bound by eligibility requirements.
So, under our current bylaws, we're not breaking any rules.
By
We're
funding
just
this through events, correct?
by funding it through events. And the precedent we're setting is not breaking any rules, but simply debating the event and seeing if it's something we would like to fund.
And if we need to change the events account to see whether or not that was an intentional change, we can do that after tonight's meeting.
So there's a chance that our oversight may allow us to not break any rules. Acting Speaker Schrader, would you like to speak on that?
That was a bylaw change made last year. That was not something we did last week. I may have not gotten updated versions, but that was not what we did last week, so.
Okay, so now I'm getting pretty confused. So I'm gonna, oh crap. Yeah, I yield.
Madam Speaker,
Yeah.
I have a point of order.
Yes.
Bylaw 11.2 says all student organizations receiving student government funding shall adhere to the eligibility requirements and subsidiary exceptions as outlined in the priorities and criteria. Do you rule that to include from the events account? Since it does not specify any accounts, it seems to be a blanket rule that applies to all organizations receiving student government funding.
It says all.
I'm gonna go with that there's the later exception, so this is not, like, that doesn't count here in this events fund.
Thank you. I yield.
Senator Advait. Senator Samuel.
You can move me down. This is about the bill as a whole.
Point of
Senator Abbott.
information. Point of information, I'll save us. Can anyone clarify what's going on right now?
I can. I will.
Is this against the rules?
So I just made a ruling that if we move this to the events account, it is not against the rules. Yeah. Senator Class.
I'm going to call the question on the amendment of changing it to the events account.
There's been a call to question and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will now move into a placard vote on whether to change this to the events account. All in favor? Placards up. All opposed? And abstentions. All right, this amendment passes. We're back onto the bill as a whole with Senator Klass. Acting Speaker Schrader. Okay. Senator Samuel.
Yeah, I was just wondering, if you guys don't pay dues or anything, how are you guys paying for the catering portion?
If we don't get the funding?
No. It says on here you guys are paying $1,113.84.
Yes. So I would try to pay it myself, and some of the members would be helping me. But even though 1,000 is too much for our students, that would be helping us very much.
Okay. I yield.
Can I say a word? Okay. So I was about the first Kuwaiti student as a female to come to Iowa State University 4 years ago. And as the first Kuwaiti student, I felt really homesick for the past 4 years, and I couldn't find a lot of Kuwaiti students to join us here. And every semester they're joining us, like 2 or 3 other Kuwaiti as females here. And it made me feel homesick. And my first semester here, a person in my class was racist to me. And that made me so insecure at Iowa State University. And that made me insisting more on showing my fellow students who we are and what we are. And I want to celebrate this National Day with everyone in this university. I wish I could show them who we really are, and not count us as one of them and not different. So that's why I'm insisting on having this celebration, and I hope everyone could feel what I feel, because 1,000 miles away from home is not easy. And every year I go through this month feeling homesick, and I really want to celebrate this with everyone at Iowa State University. Thank you.
Senator Meredith.
Okay, I have a question for Schrader. What you previously just said about, like, the bylaw was changed a couple of years ago. Do you remember what you just said? Will you clarify that? So is it meant to be in there? Is
No.
it not meant to be in there?
So I have been I don't remember that being in there. It wasn't the bill that we wrote that changed it. So I have been going through all of the old versions of the bylaws I have. I'm currently on December 5th, 2018, and that bylaw is not in there. So at least for a year and a bit, that has not been a bylaw in student government.
Okay. I yield. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Senator Hanyang.
May I just speaker again?
You may.
And thanks for bearing with us. Based on the experience you've had of the past few days, and I'm sure this has been very stressful for you, do you plan to go back to your club and have steps to become funding eligible in the next year and setting that groundwork for your members in the future?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like she's learned a lot, and I mean, I can't even imagine the stress that she's gone through having to learn everything about finance and everything about student government in the course of 2 days. That's crazy. And I understand the merits of this, but I'm going to stop talking about the merits because that's not what this is about. This is about the funding of this. If this bylaw, or the point in there about having events not be restricted to funding eligible organizations is something that we haven't really paid attention to, then I think this is a positive precedent that we're setting, because then that means we're actually going to be using events for organizations that have a hard time in these situations because they're uneducated about student government, because they don't know where to go to. I still think it's very ridiculous that the event funding board didn't get back to you about rescheduling this, and that's why we're in this predicament. In the future, you seem like you have a plan for this. So I would be in favor if, in this current form, if we're pulling from events, that seems like the most reasonable solution for a group that came in here under stress, under time constraints, and that we're able to help cure their homesickness and help them feel like they belong here at Iowa State. That I yield.
Senator Gonzalez.
Hi, this might be an unpopular opinion, but seeing that as there's a lot of sidebar conversations, and just like some general confusion, I would like to recess for 10 minutes. Does that seem okay?
There's been a motion.
5 minutes? 5?
There's been a motion to recess for 10 minutes, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will recess for 5 minutes. She said 5. 5. My bad.
I think we can. Yeah.
Back to your seats. Back to your seats, everybody. We'll now move on to Senator Class.
Awesome. Okay, so as the chair ruled, since it waives PNC, it waives the eligibility requirements. Eligibility requirements are on the first page of priorities and criteria. If you waive the entire document, it also waives PNC. I really would like to stress this, and since there are no other placards up, I will be calling the question on the bill as it is.
There's been a call to question, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will now move into a roll call vote on the bill. We're voting on the bill as a whole. Yes.
This is a 2/3 vote, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Advait. No. Alucard.
Yes.
Bender. Blair.
Yes.
Khan.
Yes.
Crab. Donlinger. Fritz. Green. Gonzalez. Han Young. Heasley. Johnson. Class. Klein. Klein. Litford. Ludwig. Mass. Meredith. Mitchell. Reese. Greenshee. Schrader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Tonette. Zastro. Bender. Crab. Donlinger. Fritz. Searles. Did I miss anyone? Gonzalez.
Yes.
With a vote of 20 to 8 to 1, this bill passes. All right, we will now move to 2019-3-024F, Funding Ames Flyer with Senator Class.
Title. Awesome. This is, just, if you read the bill, just read the bill, please. Also, I will move to add to the bottom of new business. Give me 1 second. 2019-3-19 SO, requirements of asset stuff.
Yeah.
Am I out of order?
Yeah, we'll just finish your bill and then you can do that like right after.
Cool.
Okay. So, any questions of intent? Seeing none, we will seal this bill next week.
I move to add to the agenda to the bottom of new business 2019-3-019 SO, asset recommendations, I think is the title. Revised asset recommendations.
There's been a motion to add 2019-3-019 SO, asset recommendations to the bottom of new business. Is there a second? Second. There's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this has been added to the bottom of new business. Moving on to 2019-3-025F, funding Filipino Student Association with Senator Class.
Title. Yeah, we saw them. We already saw them, actually, so this will be voted on next week.
All right. Any questions of intent? Seeing none, we'll see this one next week. 2019-3-027F, funding Open Educational Resource Recognition Awards with Senator Fritz.
Title. Yeah, so this one is just working with Senior Director of Academic Affairs Moody in order to get some recognition awards for teachers or professors currently using OERs.
Any questions of intent? Seeing none, we will see this one next week. 2019-3-028F, funding softball club with Senator Zastro.
This is a really simple bill. I almost made the second whereas clause. Whereas this bill is so simple that it only requires one whereas clause. We'll see you next week. I yield.
Any questions of intent? Seeing none, we will see this bill next week. 2019-3-029F, funding KURE Fest with Senator Class.
Title. Again, read the bill, but also note the amount. This usually goes through annuals. However, they were very gracious in taking the risk of sending it through Senate as its own thing because it is an event that is free to all students and things like that. That helped us cut down a lot on the declining enrollment and things such as that. And we already saw it, so we'll be voting on it next week.
Any questions of intent? Seeing none, we will see this one next week. Moving to 2019-3-017SR, support for including voter registration forms in DOR move-in packets with Senator Tonet.
Title? All right, so yeah, this is support for including voter registration forms in DOR move-in packets. That's a very long title, but that's exactly what this is about. This has been an initiative from the Civic Engagement Committee for probably a couple months now, and the intent of this bill is not ordering the DOR to implement this. It's more us voicing our support for the initiative. So I will waive first read, move to waive first read on this bill.
There's been a motion to waive second read on this bill, and there's been a second. Are there any objections?
One of the reads.
Seeing none, second read has been waived. Senator Tonet.
Thank you. I tried to get this out to you all as soon as possible to kind of give you a chance to read over it. I was inspired by footnotes on recent resolutions, so I have one footnote on this bill. It's essentially going to the DOR's mission statement, and I thought this was especially powerful because in their mission statement, it says that one of their main values is community engagement, which then says empowering students to become engaged learners, responsible citizens, and dynamic leaders. And I thought that community engagement being one of their values, I figured that giving students more of an opportunity to become responsible citizens and register to vote in their new address would be very applicable to their stated values on their own website. Yeah, so with that, I will yield, but I'm very, very open to questions. I'd love to hear what you all think about this.
Senator Klein.
Is this thing on? Perfect. So I'm in support of this bill. I think it's very important that everyone have the opportunity to register with their new address. I think this is an excellent opportunity for people to learn or to engage civically more. So this did come up in IRHA last week, and I would be lying if I said that there were no concerns. There absolutely were concerns. The only one that I really could put any substance in, that was grounded in something, was a concern that since students who are moving in are generally overwhelmed, because they're getting lots of new information at them, that this would just be another addition to that, so it would add to that overwhelming feeling. As far as I could tell, that was not the sentiment of the whole IRHA. That was just a few people. And my response to that would be is that since this is optional, it's just another paper in there. They're free to ignore it. I don't feel like it would be incredibly overwhelming. It's just something that students would have another option to do at move-in. So I'll be supporting this bill, and I think that it's just good for increasing civic engagement across campus.
Senator Zastro.
Yeah, like Senator Klein, I also represent the Residence Hall Association. I think there was something else, somebody that came by last Thursday. I was at annual, so I wasn't at the meeting. But 2 weeks ago, there was somebody from Civic Engagement there as well, talking about the initial move to get the DOR to have voter registration available to students, and all the parliament seem very, very open to the idea. A few of them seem pretty excited about it too. I know I am. Technically, I'm not a member of that body, but I sit. They're actually changing the bylaws tomorrow night, so be here in 24 hours if you want to hear that debate. But in general, I think that this bill is sincerely beneficial for the city of Ames, the census movement that's going on. This going alongside with that, I think would be really beneficial to both. I'll move to remove Senator Lipford from the roll.
There's been a motion to add Senator Litford from the roll. Oh, remove Senator Litford from the roll. Are there any objections? Seeing none, he's been removed.
I think this is a really, really great resolution, and I think that this is something that the DOR will take in stride if it has the support of student government. I yield.
Senator Schrader.
Senator Tonet, sorry, you said something in your civic engagement committee update about this. Can you just reiterate that? Sorry, I forgot exactly what you said.
Okay, I don't know what exactly you're referring to, so I'll kind of just give a little spiel. So, this has been something we've been working on for a couple months. We had initially reached out to the Director of Residence, Pete Anglin, about this, and his immediate response was, no, we're not going to do that. And so we responded and said, hey, we'd love to have a meeting about this. A lot of students are in support of this. And that meeting is tomorrow. So that's why I was I hate to say pushing this through, but hurrying the process to get this bill approved so we could bring an approved bill to the meeting and say, hey, students are in support of this. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks, I'll yield.
Yeah.
Senator Blair.
It feels like a lot of people are supporting this, but I just want to add my own perspective. I've helped a lot of students register to vote over my time here. It is an easy process to register to vote, but even the smallest barrier can get in people's way. Getting access to a form, getting access to a stamp can be enough to keep someone from registering to vote. And so giving these people the opportunity to do it in a more formal setting, I think is important. And also just getting them a piece of paper itself is a big step forward. We have state registration here in Iowa, but the process is the bar is raised higher on state registration. It also makes lines longer at the polls. So if you voted in the Greekland polling location at Buchanan, in 2018 that line was there until 11:30 because there were so many state registrants. So we registered to vote at a much higher rate on the same day. Getting more people registered before the pre-registration deadline will greatly help expedite the process of voting and open it up to more people. So I really support this. I understand the concerns about a lot of information, but this is such an important piece of information and such a foundational act as citizens that I think we should support. Thank you.
Senator Advait.
So first of all, great bill, love it. Senator Tonet, did you say something about Director England's first response to the suggestion being, no, we're not going to do that? And my question is, could you give us more insight into why Director England might not be in support of the bill and the reasoning behind that, I guess?
Yes. Let's see if I can find the email. So, I'm pulling up the email right now. So we initially asked, hey, we initially said we'd love to set up a meeting to talk about this, and his answer was, he said that he votes in every election, and so he appreciates the work, but it won't be part of our move-in packets, is what he said, and did not respond to our meeting invitation in the first email. So another point of argument that he made was, which I think was addressed by the IRHA senators, is Dr. England said there is so much information regarding living on campus, our primary mission, that we have not included any additional pieces. Did that answer your?
That does answer my question, and okay. I yield.
Senator Searles.
Yeah, I'm going to call the question on this really quick. After this, I know we're. Oh, thanks. I'm not done yet. I just want to throw out there, As community advisors, we're expected to enforce what we call the LLL model. It's living, learning, leading. One of those 5 categories that we follow is community and civic responsibility. One of those subcategories is responsible citizenship. That is an expectation of our job. If we do not fulfill and write a weekly report on those, we are subject to job action, which can eventually lead to termination. This is a part of our job, so it is unacceptable that the Department of Residence as a whole is unwilling to do that if they force their community advisors to do that as well. Also, Freddie has the most papers in their move-in packet. We sit down with every single resident that checks in and we go through every single check-in paper. One extra paper, not gonna add that much. So if someone wants to talk about it, I'd love to chat in person. Call the question.
There's been a call to question and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will move into a placard vote on this resolution, and there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this bill has been passed with unanimous consent. Now moving on to 2019-3-018 SA MLO contract with Senator Zastro.
This is a contract that, title. This is a contract that we ratified last year. Finance Committee was, Madison was going over some old contracts. She ran into this one, brought it in front of Finance Committee. We met with the person who represents the other signatory of the contract, and we both agreed that there's one area where student government's annual obligation can be lowered by another $900 per year, which is great. We'll see this next week.
Questions of intent? Seeing none, we'll see this one next week. And finally, 2019-3-019 SO asset recommendations with Senator Klass. Oh, Senator Ludwig.
Title. Okay. Yeah, so these are the asset funding recommendations for the next year. These are similar to the ones that we discussed in the fall semester when we revised them. So yeah, we'll see you next week and we'll have a longer discussion then.
Questions of intent? Seeing none, we'll see this one next week. Closing announcements. Senator Khan.
Hey y'all, just Noah's mentioned earlier, but I'm just very excited to announce the funding of the Freddie Court composting moving forward. We love compost. That is all.
Senator Alucard.
So I just wanted to thank you guys for sitting through 2 weeks ago a really long and emotional open forum for a lot of veterinary students, and I kind of wanted to give you guys an update because I think as supporters of the entire student body, you guys deserve to know what's going on. So last week, the reason I was not at Senate was because the scheduled meeting I have went 3.5 hours with CVM administration, which was intense, but it was really important that I was there. We started going through the list in great detail. Their cabinet had only seen it for 24 hours, which is obviously really hard for us to expect anything at that point. But even in that short amount of time, they had completely revamped the diversity and inclusion website, and they are currently in contacts with us to have further meetings. This Monday, note was also sent out to the entire CVM community because our dean hasn't just been emailing the student body, he's been emailing faculty, staff, and employees of the university, of the CVM as well, because it was not just a student issue. And so part of that addressed our resolutions. It's actually been posted on our Vet Zone website, and in similar style, I believe they're going to be updating it with the progress they make. It's just an act of transparency and open communication. And then he also called, and I really like this quote, so I'm going to share it with you guys. My final thought, I would like all of us to look at this not as a negative, but as an opportunity to learn and grow so that we can continue to make progress on making a community that is a great place to learn and work for everyone. And I think that that's really important, that we saw an administration called out in a very open and honest way. But that's what these positions are for. It was brought up at the GPSS meeting that our positions in student leadership are not to, for lack of better words, dick around with pedantics. And it's true. We are in this position to represent the student body and to advocate for an equitable education, period. So I really hope that even if you don't return to student government next year, I myself will be having live patients and I will not be, but I think it's really important that we go out into our community and recognize that we still have a responsibility, whether we're current or past senators, to advocate for everyone on this campus. So I really appreciate all of your guys' support in that and just wanted to give you guys that update.
Senator Searles.
Hi, everyone. I'd just like to announce that I'm coming back next year running for president of the, no. You can breathe a little lighter, don't worry. I just wanted to actually say thank you publicly to Senator Zastro and to Treasurer Doherty for pushing to send that funding request to Senate. Without that, we wouldn't have noticed some holes that we thought existed in our own rules, and we wouldn't have noticed that we weren't going to break any rules by funding that, and that, as Senator Han Young beautifully put out, we were able to fund an event with an organization that did not have other funding. I hope to see some changes where they start fundraising and getting their own dues, but I consider this a good thing on both sides. We learned about what we need to fix on our own end, and the precedent was that we did everything we could to help the students out and figured out our own holes within our own rules. So I think that's a win. Whether you agree with whether it was funded or not, it was an important thing to find out. So that's my takeaway. Yeah, I yield.
Lovely Senator Tonette.
All right. I just wanted to thank you all again for approving the bill about the voter registration forms. So I just have a couple statistics I wanted to let you all know. So I'm on the housing website again. And last fall, not this fall, but last fall, residence halls plus apartments had 11,400 people living in them. So if even 5% of those students fill out these voter registration forms and send them in, that's 570 people getting registered to vote right away. So I'm not trying to say anything crazy, but if you're walking to the library, there might be a few less tables of people harassing you to register to vote, because so many more people are getting registered to vote right away. That was probably a stretch. I bet those people will still be out there registering you to vote. But that's awesome. Right away, these people are getting such a great opportunity. And as for DOR relations, again, I want to stress, I'm not trying to wage a war against the DOR. The first email rubbed me a little wrong, but we've had continuing talks with Dr. Englund, and they've been pretty cordial so far. And then just a couple days ago, we got the update about the forms at the hall desks, that's approved. So I think we're off to a really good start with the DOR. And I know we kind of censured them earlier in the year, so I was worried about that too. But I think we're looking good moving forward. So thank you all again.
Senator Klein.
First, I'd like to say they don't appear to be bitter at the DOR, from what I've noticed, so you don't have to worry about that. So I wanted to speak about Heroes Week. So I think I speak for both myself and Hyatt when I say that we are stressed out of our minds. This is a big event. We could use all the help that we can muster. Now, I know that I asked y'all for videos, and I'm going to do so again right now, and I'm going to be a little more specific this time, because I feel like that might be the barrier to entry. So, basically, for each day, we want to have a set of videos playing leading up to our lectures. And we want those videos to be student leaders, y'all, for example, talking about times that they have overcome adversity, or helped someone overcome adversity, or seen someone overcome adversity. Really, I think all of you could put in a video, submit it to myself or Hyatt or Elena, and it just needs to be like 2-3 minutes, right? Just going over like a time in your life when you've overcome something or helped someone overcome something. it would really do a lot. As we can tell, students are in need of heroes. They're in need of seeing that there are people here on campus who have faced challenges and who have overcome them. It's very important that we recognize that there is a hero in all of us, and that we make sure that the students can see that as well. I'd rather not hound people, but I need these videos, okay? Like, I need them, okay? Like, we got, what, a week and a half? Oh, God. Okay, so help me out, please. Thank you.
Senator Samuel?
Yeah, adding on to that, I will be sending out like questions, a questionnaire, I guess you can say, for the videos, so then you don't have to come up with something yourself. And if you guys do want to answer it, please let us know, and we could get someone to record the video for you. So yeah, with that being said, I yield.
Senator Gonzalez?
Hi, everyone. So now that I'm officially on PR committee, and also, as I mentioned before, as an office assistant, after these elections coming up, I'm hoping to revamp the office and make it look pretty and nice. And that's why, like, leading up to it, I've been asking you guys to be like a little bit more conscientious of, you know, keeping it clean and whatnot. So, with that, if you have any ideas of what you want to see in the office for the rest of the year and for the like coming year, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to take your ideas into consideration. Because one of these like weekends after the elections, I'm gonna just like go ham on it. So also, if you want to help me on that, I'd really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you.
Senator Zastro?
Okay, so first of all, thank you all for checking the rules when Finance Committee thought that they knew them, because evidently we didn't. So thanks for those of you who validated that, and that's something that Finance will be looking at more in the future. Second, I'd just like to say, next Tuesday and Wednesday, student government is holding elections. I'm running for UROC Senator. I'd appreciate your vote. Just kidding, I'm not going to go through all that. Not that I have a lecture either. Speaking of lectures, though, I got a little lecture update for y'all. So on the 26th, so that's tonight. So right now, we're missing 2 lectures, actually. But on March 5th in 5:30 in the Sunroom is Reconnecting Landscapes for Nature and People with Dr. Nick Haddad. That sounds great. Symphony of Diversity, which we saw earlier this year, and which is going to be a fantastic event. Adrian Anantawan will be performing at Stevens at 7:30 on March 5th as well. I believe that's a Thursday. I can check. Yep, it is. Ancient Indian Science in the Modern World with Dr. Subhash Kak will be on Friday the 6th in 127 Curtis at 6 p.m. And that is Hindu Yuva that's putting that on, I believe. And then one more before the next 2 weeks, I'll add on there, is God a Conservative, which will be in the Sunroom at 7 p.m. at the Memorial Union. And that's in Andrew Clavan speech. So that's going to be your weekly lectures update. Really hope you enjoy, and I'll hope you all listen to me again next week. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Han Young?
Can I move myself down until after Senator Ludwig gives his closing announcement?
You can.
Okay, I'm going to then.
Senator Ludwig?
So yeah, last week I said I was probably going to be gone because of an exam. I thought it was going to take a lot longer. I thought it was going to be a lot harder. It wasn't. To quote Mark Twain, reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. I survived. I made it. However, I didn't expect to be betrayed upon my return to Senate. So I'm going to go a little extra. We're going 3 weeks out with lectures updates. Okay. All right. I'm getting hints to move on. I'd like to once again display my displeasure with what happened here, but also wish you guys all like a stress-free like latter half of the week. I know I've been like tweaked a little bit the past couple days. I've got like a little bit left to go, so like I'm stressing out. So I just want you guys to all like take care of yourselves because I'm not doing a great job of that right now. So like you should all do it. Yeah, you all have a good night. I yield.
Back to Senator Han Young.
All right, after that entertainment, we have more entertainment. Iowa State Singers has a concert this Sunday in Music Hall at 4 p.m. Be there. It's going to be our entire set for the entire year, so all the songs we've been doing. After that, we're doing a recording session, so if you want, Iowa State Singers is on Spotify. Check them out. It's pretty good music. Also, I think it's been said before, but great job problem solving tonight. One thing that I think was pretty important, a pretty important takeaway from this whole thing was that a student didn't understand not only about student government, but also about their own club and their status of it. So after that, I just, I talked to her and said, you know, hey, you I gave her Kevin Merrill and Bridget Millhouse's information from Student Activity Center, just so that these sort of things that we're working proactively and giving them the resources that they need so that they can be successful and we don't have these kind of crises in the future. Last night we had a great presidential debate. Both the women sitting next to me did amazing jobs, and I'm proud of all of them and proud of everybody. And as we get to the end of this season, I'm just really glad that this is a family of great people, period. So, also, one more thing, last thing. Donkey for Democracy has their elimination game tomorrow, 11 p.m. It's 11 p.m., right? Yeah, okay. So hopefully you all be out late night, good times. Hopefully we get the dub so we can be back at that eventually later. So.
Okay, just a couple of things from me. Thank you again for dealing with my shenanigans while I chair. I'm coming back to you. We're doing this in the right order. Thank you again for being so patient with me while I chair. I'm going to glide past the fact that y'all seem to do the weirdest stuff while I chair. But we only took one confusion recess this meeting, so I think that's progress. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves in the next week. I know a lot of people have exams or they're sick. Also, I know elections are next week, which is bonkers. So just make sure you're taking time for yourself, taking care of yourself. Student government's important, but it is not everything, so take care of yourselves. Acting Vice Speaker Stanley.
Cool. So as I mentioned briefly, it's kind of funny that our year has been bookended by very similar debates. So it's time for, I think, all of you to start giving a little bit of thought into the goals that you came in to student government with at the start of this term. Just analyze, see whether you've accomplished those goals, whether you're on your way. And if you're not, see whether it's feasible for you to still do those goals, or if it's not, maybe pass it on to your successor in a transition report, or if you're coming back, I'd love to see you take another crack at it next year, next term, I should say. Also, good debate. I really liked it. It made me feel alive again. I haven't felt like that since October of last year. As far as confusion recesses go, they're not desirable, but I'd rather have a confusion recess than a confusion meeting, so cool. And a very interesting precedent was set by our lovely chair's ruling today that Rules Committee is going to be having a long, hard look at. So thank you all again, and I look forward to seeing you next term. Also vote for me for UROC, please.
Acting Speaker Schrader.
So I think, so I was going to say Dunking for Democracy, but Josh beat me to it. We can come out at 11. I think today was the importance. Also, I know it was like rush the bill, but you know, when we waive second read and we vote on the bills the first time we see them, that's when we kind of get into a lot of molasses of trying to work through things. So if you guys have questions all about bills, we can come to Rules Committee or email one of us and we can try and figure it out before we come to the floor so we can save some time there. Thank you for Kate for emailing this whole report. It's really interesting. Like, you guys should all look at it. There's like a lot of really interesting numbers about it. And I will spend a large amount of time looking at it. I think you all should. It's really great information. No, it is. I'm not sarcastic, Sid. Anyway, please go for it. And with that, go Cyclones, and motion to adjourn.